Hello, this is Robert McKay, dispensing with the thoroughly amateur title cards today. This is kind of a rush video. I found myself with the time to do it, and here we are. One of the reasons, there are several, one of the reasons that I decided to start this channel, even though I have nothing resembling anything like good production, is that there are some very good basic whiskeys out there, whiskeys that are suitable for beginners, and I'm aiming this channel towards beginners in whiskey. Very good basic whiskeys, which you never find anybody review, or at least it's hard to find online reviews. And one of them is this one. It's Balcones Baby Blue, and because of the way I have to do the lighting, I don't know how readable the label is. I love Balcones Distilling's way of doing things. This little strip here on the bottom says the original Texas whiskey, and it's got the Texas star in the middle. And Balcones can make that claim. Garrison Brothers is famous for being the first legal bourbon distillery in Texas since Prohibition. But Balcones was the first legal distillery. And they got their whiskey out, I think, a year or two before Garrison Brothers did, but it wasn't bourbon. So Garrison Brothers is right. They're the first legal bourbon distillery, but Balcones was there a little before them. But this is the Baby Blue corn whiskey. I haven't looked things up for this, but as I remember, it's 100% blue corn. It's pot distilled, it says here on the label. It's a 92 proof, which is not low proof, but it's not really high either. And Balcones Distilling has an idiosyncratic way of putting on age statements. Aged at least 12 months in oak. Now, corn whiskey, by law, has to age either in uncharred new barrels or used charred barrels. And so it typically does not have a whole lot of color or flavor, especially after just a year, although at least a year could mean anything above a year. But it typically does not have a lot of color. But look at how dark this stuff is. It's aging in Texas. And climate does make a difference. You could take the same juice, put it in a barrel in Scotland, a barrel in Kentucky, and in a third barrel in Texas. And I'm going to try something new. My setup will not let me do what a lot of people do. And in each place, the exact same juice in an oak barrel, as identical as you can get oak barrels to be. And of course, as soon as I'm on camera, my allergies kick in. And that same juice would age differently in each place. You could age it for 20 years in Scotland and it would be perfect. You could age it for 6 or 8 or 10 years in Kentucky and it would be perfect. You could age it for 2 years in Texas and it would be perfect. Climate makes a difference. Now, I didn't pour very much because this is just a review, and so I'm not going to drink the whole glass of it. But even in the glass, even just a little bit, that's a pretty dark corn whiskey. I've had mellow corn, which is the only bonded corn whiskey in the United States. It ages 4 years. It has to, by law, being a bonded whiskey. And it's not this dark, not anywhere near it. And yet they're both aging in either new uncharred barrels or used charred barrels. So you won't get the color and flavor. This is Texas climate at work. This whiskey, and I have taken to using one of these metallic silver markers and writing on the bottle the date and the price and where I get it at. This came from Kelly Liquors at the Mountain Run location here in Albuquerque. It got it on the 1st, so it's a brand new bottle. I've only had, I think, 2 glasses out of it. Cost me $39.99, so a $40 bottle of whiskey. That is kind of at the upper limit of my price range, but when you look at whiskey overall, that is not a bad price for a good whiskey. Not at all. And the first thing you get is this sweetness. It's kind of a woody sweetness coming off of the nose. And there's corn in there, butter, butterscotch, caramel. It has the distinct Balcones touch, as I call it. I believe that if I had never smelled a particular Balcones whiskey in my life, never been in the same county as a bottle of it, and I was tasting blind, I would know it was Balcones. I really believe that. They're so distinctive. There's a sweet corn in there. There's a corn smell that is unique to Balcones. It comes to me as corn, but it's not like any corn I've ever personally tasted or smelled. And very buttery. I've mentioned butter. This is a very buttery whiskey on the nose. So the aromas, as with Balcones whiskey, are very distinct, very bold, very vibrant. But because this is a single grain whiskey, it's blue corn. I'm sorry, my allergies. As soon as I started recording this, bam, they blew up. And so I've been wiping my nose, as you saw. I'm sniffing. I do apologize. But I don't have time to start over. The aromas are very vibrant, very rich, but there are not many of them. This isn't a complex whiskey. It's a simple whiskey, meaning, and I remember that I had to learn this, and that's why I'm explaining it to beginners. Remember the purpose of the channel. It means there's not a lot there. However wonderful it is, there are just a certain few notes. There are not a lot of notes all mingling together and working together. And I've recently come across, I don't remember who said it. It might have been the Whiskey Tribe, Daniel and Rex. But wherever I learned it, it's the principle that with a simple whiskey, you're getting the basic notes, butter, corn, caramel, what have you. But with a complex whiskey, you tend to get notes that make you think of a finished product, pecan pie, roasting years, whatever it may be, something that took preparation and involves multiple things. How valid that is, I'm not entirely certain. I'm still working on understanding it, but it seems so far to me to be valid. But because I do have limited time, let me start sipping it. That very first sip, all at once, it's smoky, oaky, buttery. This is a corn whiskey, but it comes across as a bourbon. Legally, if you age this stuff in new charred barrels, it could be bourbon. The only difference between a pure corn whiskey and a bourbon is how you age it. Anything that is, anything that is 51% corn or more, which ages in a new charred oak barrel, is a bourbon. As long as it's in the United States. That is a legal requirement. So this exact same juice could be a bourbon, and it drinks like a bourbon. I've had a few corn whiskeys, not many. Melicorn, New Mexico blue corn whiskey, which they make right here in Albuquerque. And this. Oh, and Longhorn corn whiskey from Texas. And this is the only one which is not sour at all. The mellow corn is good, but it has a little bit of sourness in it. And the other two were so sour I couldn't drink them. This is not sour at all. It's sweet. And again, it's simple. It's not complex. That time, in addition to the smoke and the oak and the butter, I got a little bit of, oh shoot, it just went right out of my head. It was in my mind, and I was going to tell you, and I've lost it. So I hate to ignore you, but I got to find out what it was. Brown sugar. How you can forget brown sugar between the sip and the swallow is beyond me, but I have a mind like a steel sieve. So butter, oak, smoke, brown sugar, not complex. You are not going to get a ton of notes from this whiskey, but it is good. It tastes wonderful. It's warm and rich, and it's like you're sitting by a campfire. It doesn't have marshmallow notes in it. Please don't misunderstand me. It does not taste like marshmallow, but it's like you're sitting by a campfire eating roasted marshmallows. There's not a whole ton of flavor, but it's so good. So clearly, I rate this whiskey highly. For a corn whiskey, it is absolutely superb. As I said, it cost me, what was it, $39.99, call it $40. I couldn't afford it, at least not on anything like a regular basis, but I'd pay $50 for this. That's how good it is. Now, as you grow in your knowledge of whiskey, you're going to find that some people do not like Balcones Distilling. They will not drink anything from Balcones. I don't know why. My guess is that their juice is so different from anything you're going to find anywhere else. When I first encountered their pot still bourbon, and one of these days I'll review that for y'all. It's my favorite whiskey of all time after more than a year of trying more and more and more whiskeys as I can afford to. When I tried that, it blew everything out of the water, and to this day I rave about how wonderful it is. And people who think that if you like it, it's good whiskey, suddenly did not think that was good whiskey, even though I liked it. I've had people get angry at me because I like Balcones. Don't ask me why people would be that negative, but it doesn't taste like anything. Any of their products do not taste like what you're going to get out of Kentucky and Tennessee, which are to this day the center of whiskey distillation in the United States. They don't taste like anything but Balcones, and they're good. And if you want to drink Baby Blue, I will be happy for you. I encourage you to at least try it. Now, it may not necessarily be available where you are. It's amazing how whiskeys are like that, but that's a whole nother video, which maybe I'll do. This one I do need to finish because I have other things I have to do. As I said, I just happened to suddenly come into some time. So I will finish this up. Good whiskey.